You guys, great news. You can quit crying about inflation. You can quit harping on low GDP. You can quit harping on, record low job participation in our job market. Quit whining about consumer sentiment. Get your sentiment up, you guys, because we are sitting on record low unemployment numbers, 3.5%. And the president of the United States has gone so far as to say, and I quote, "More people are working than at any point in American history." Wah, wah, wah. Okay, so not only is that categorically and undeniably untrue, but more importantly, what are we sitting in economically here? Is it a recession? We can't seem to agree. Is it a transition? Is it, what do we call it? A shmrushmrushin? Is it an alley-oop? Can we just call it hard times? I'm going to use layman terms from here on out since nobody can seem to agree on the nomenclature here. And I'm just going to say, is our economy good or are we on the struggle bus? Okay, so first of all, I think that this gets back to, for me personally, and this is why I really dug into this in the last few days, because I'm seeing a lot of conversation about it, and I'm going, wow, more people are working than ever before in U.S. history, and wow, unemployment, that looks really low, and in every other U.S. recession we've had, unemployment has been up, GDP has been low, unemployment's been up. What is going on here? And as I've dug into the dynamics at play here that I'm going to just lay out as far as I understand it, because I am not an economist. I did take Econ 101 back in college, macro and micro. Thank you. Thank you very much. I thought about being an economist for a second because I enjoyed the classes so much. But then I remembered that I didn't want to work for the government. So let's talk about this and look around. Keep in mind, evidence you see in your own lives. I think that if anything is reliable, it is the evidence you have in your own life. What are you seeing? Me personally, I'm looking around and I'm hearing people struggle with inflation, of course. I'm hearing that it's hitting people's pocketbooks really, really hard. People are struggling financially. Not everyone, but a lot of people. I'm certainly not hearing that these are, the most prosperous times for most of the people that I'm around. I'm around a lot of small business owners, and these are hard times for them. I'm hearing from people who can't find work or the type of work that pays enough. I'm hearing more and more people who have just exited the job market completely. So what is going on here? Let's just start with unemployment. That figure is just at a very basic level. Let's just acknowledge that figure is derived based on people who are technically considered part of the labor market, that they are participating in the labor market. That's important because more and more people over the course of the pandemic, and this trend has continued over the course of the Biden administration, are leaving the job market. So they're either retiring, they are deciding to stay at home and take care of families and kind of alleviate the burden of childcare costs. Their unemployment benefits have run out. And so they still don't have work, but their unemployment benefits have expired. They can no longer claim unemployment, or they've just totally given up because it's been such a lackluster experience for them trying to get a job. They just haven't had luck. So I think we can all agree that as a whole, our collective economy does better when more people are working. So the fact that fewer people are working, fewer and fewer and fewer are part of the job force, that is not a good sign for our economy. And it is in part why it in part plays, along with a lot of other factors, into a decline in GDP. So this is going to be hilarious because I'm going to talk about things that I don't know a lot about, but I'm doing this on purpose. I'm trying to talk to you from a very layman's perspective because I am a layman. Okay, so consumer sentiment, that is one of the measures of how our economy is doing. That's real low. So what does that mean? You ask people how are you feeling about things? Are you struggling? Are you not struggling? Are you feeling optimistic about your prospects job wise and your prospects for your own economy within your own family. People are going, not feeling so great about it. It's not looking good. We are maybe on the struggle bus. That's consumer sentiment. Meanwhile, labor force participation is the lowest it's been. Man, this chart goes back to, long time ago. So about 45 years, lowest it's been in 45 years from the time that this chart goes back at least. So labor force participation has gone down. And of course, as labor force participation goes down, unfilled job rates go up. So more unfilled jobs. We have another number over here, and it is, that's just labor force participation. So unemployment claims. So for a week ending, this was ending July 16th, initial unemployment claims increased by 7,000 for a total of 251,000. So applications for state unemployment insurance have risen throughout July. So this means to me, things aren't quite adding up. We have record level low unemployment, which can be partially explained by the fact that more and more people are leaving the job market. So if there's a smaller pool, so obviously the unemployment numbers are going to go down and be affected in a downward motion by fewer people participating in the labor market. Meanwhile, though, corporate profit margin, record highs. This is what I'm particularly interested in, you guys. Like I'm really a little bit less interested in the conversation. I'm sure there's some utility in whether or not we formally declare that we are in a recession or we don't. I'm sure there's some kind of, reality check type benefit to that and being clear on that. But I'm less interested in the words we're using, like recession or transition or whatever. I think I'm comfortable saying our economy isn't strong. I think that that's not only misleading, but just completely tone deaf to what many Americans are experiencing. But the reality is corporate cash on hand is sitting at about $4 trillion. So record profits. The reality is this pandemic continues to benefit the richest of the rich. It continues to benefit people like Jeff Bezos and corporations. So they're sitting there, don't worry about us. Yes, we're the heroes of this pandemic. These pharmaceutical giants, the Jeff Bezos of the world, these big major corporations, don't worry about us. We're going to get us through this economy because we are sitting pretty. So those numbers lead you to believe maybe they have inflated prices beyond what they needed to increase prices to offset higher costs and these supply chain issues that they've been experiencing. But corporations are going, we've got lots and lots and lots of money. This pandemic has been good to us financially. Why that's concerning to me is first of all, the shift in power dynamic. And I hate to continue to harp on this, but it is disconcerting to see that these, let's call them the top 10%, these wealthy beneficiaries of corporate profits getting richer and thereby this power shift of more of the money and power to these major corporations and who runs them. Because we're seeing that it is at the detriment, it is on the backs of the middle class and in particular lower income families. So middle class, lower income families, the majority of the population, we are responsible for about 60% of consumer goods purchased. So we are going to experience the undue burden of inflation a lot more harshly than the top 10% is going to absorb that. And I'm not here to get into a conversation about demonizing the rich people. That's not what this is about. This is about the fact that corporations are sitting pretty and the majority of Americans are not. Hence what you see in the consumer sentiment index, lower GDP. So part of the reason too that corporations have been able to sit pretty is because of the regulatory decisions made over the course of the pandemic. So money was pumped into the economy to kind of stimulate artificially our economy so that people could keep buying at the same rate from these corporations, PS, while in their lives they're making less money. So people have been able to, for the most part, maintain spending levels. And so these corporations haven't seen a hit to their business as a result. Quite the contrary. These low unemployment numbers, by the way, are a lot of economists believe that it's going to lead the Fed to probably more increase the interest rates a little bit more than they probably would have otherwise had that number been allowed to had our economy been left to its own devices, for the most part at least, and left to kind of shift and adjust on its own rather than all of this money artificially being pumped into the economy, allowing corporations to do just fine through the pandemic. And let's be honest, allowed a lot of us to keep buying at the same rate, which was nice for a time. But now we're seeing these really wonky results as a result of all of that. We're seeing that GDP is down 2 quarters in a row. Not good. Corporations, they're just fine. I'm not worried about them. Small businesses and middle class and lower income families are the ones who are going to continue to struggle, particularly as we see yet again the Fed increase the interest rates. That's going to make it much harder to secure consumer loans and small business loans. So what I worry about personally in my own life is how can I defer some of the money I'm spending at corporations. We've been doing this in kind of small baby steps where we can. Because, we don't always have the luxury, let's be honest, to quote unquote vote with our dollar. It's become more important to us. And so we try to where we can. And more we've been able to prioritize spending our money at locally owned businesses, privately owned companies rather than corporate companies. Just because our economy really is the most resilient and we see the most robust economy when small businesses are doing well. And that's just not the case right now. So we have right now, I believe, an artificial situation where right now, the most lagging, by the way, indicator of how our economy is doing, which is unemployment. And by lagging indicator, I mean, it's kind of the last to go. So what we're seeing is we're kind of on this cusp of, okay, what's going to happen now? There are kind of 2 schools of thought. One is that the corporations, once again, can be our heroes now that we've enriched them to this point and they're holding $4 trillion on cash on hand. Either they're going to kind of buffer this and get us through this situation because they're saying, hey, we're adding all of these jobs. We've got plenty of money to do. We're going to add all of these jobs, increase wages. Not nearly enough to offset inflation, but they are wages are increasing generally speaking. Jobs are increasing generally speaking. Who's going to fill those jobs? I don't know, as more and more people have and continue to drop out of the job market. However, that's one school of thought, that the richness of corporations and the fact that they're still doing really well profitability wise, that they can buffer us through these next couple of months and maybe start to, get us back to a level where consumer sentiment is back up. Maybe people are doing a little bit better and more people actually are working as opposed to what Biden said, that more people, that's hilarious, by the way. It's just, when you look into, if you just research these issues for 5 seconds, you start to see how many politicians will just assume that you're not going to do 5 minutes of research to figure it out for yourself. They assume that you're just going to stay dumb and take it on face value that, see, unemployment is low, therefore most people are going to believe that more people are working than ever in U.S. history. That's what that number leads us to believe. Wow, 3.5%. That means, I'm not a mathematician or anything, but 96.5% of Americans are working? Look around. No, that's not. And so I hope I helped explain why that's not quite the case at all, actually, and why those numbers kind of aren't adding up. And really what you see around you isn't necessarily adding up to the indicators of how our economy is doing. So that's one school of thought. Corporations are going to be the heroes once again, and they're going to get us through this. Or the most lagging of indicators, which is unemployment, is going to start to catch up to the rest of the numbers in terms of its decline. And corporations are going to go, oh, wait, and they're going to start feeling the squeeze as Americans are feeling the squeeze more and more, and they're not able to sustain their level of spending that they have in the past. Because once again, most of them are out of the job, more and more of them are out of the job market. And we are going to officially see undeniably numbers across the board that indicate a recession. I don't know which of those is going to happen. I don't know if there's an option C. I don't know. Like I said, I'm not an economist. I'm just a regular consumer like you, trying to figure out and make sense of these numbers that don't seem to align. Okay. There's my attempt at speaking economics, which is a language that I don't understand. However, I do know how basic math works in terms of like looking around at the evidence of my life and seeing that it doesn't quite add up to this this picture perfect version of the job market that is being portrayed by our White House administration, our current administration, and being propagated by most of the mainstream media too. See, we're not in a recession, you guys. How could we be in a recession? I will say, if we are in a recession, it is unlike any other recession in U.S. history, because in every other recession we've seen unemployment start to rise. So are we going to see that? Are we not? I don't know. What do you guys think about all this? Is anybody else concerned about the disproportionate amount of wealth being shifted to corporations? Is anybody else concerned with how much they are profiting on the backs of middle class and low income people who are spending their money? Okay, that's it for economics.